So hello again and welcome to the last class. All the talking about doctors and medicine made me feel a bit dizzy, so with your permission I'll also sit down. And actually another good reason to sit down is that we're going to talk about even more dizzying stuff than what we discussed in the last class. And this is the potential impact of the new technologies like artificial intelligence, like biotechnology, on our view of the world, on religion, on ideology. And to understand the impact of these new technologies on our ideology and religion, we first of all need to understand what is the basic view of the world that today prevails in the world, around the planet. And I would like to argue that the deep understanding that today prevails around the world is what we call humanism. Humanism means the idea that human beings are at the center of the world. Human beings are the source of all the authority and meaning in the world. Whereas previous cultures believed in the existence of God or of supernatural powers that are the source of all meaning and authority in the world, we believe in ourselves, in human beings, in our own feelings as the source of meaning. Whereas previously, when humans faced a difficult question or dilemma, they were told to look for the answers by turning to God or to the angels or to some other supernatural power. People today usually are told, listen to your own feelings, listen to your own thoughts. The only answers will come from human beings, from the will, from the desires, from the feelings of human beings. Let's just give a few examples to what this means, what humanism means in practice, so everybody understands this central idea of humanism. So in politics, when previously in past ages, humans wanted to know to whom should a political authority belong, again, they turned to God. They turned to the priests that mediated between the gods and humanity and asked who should be king or who should be emperor. And kings and emperors were kings and emperors in the grace of God. They got their authority from the heavens, from the gods. In the modern world, more and more the authority comes from the humans, from the feelings and thoughts of the humans. This is most clearly seen in the institution of democratic elections that has become quite widespread around much of the world in the last generations. Humanist politics is politics that thinks that the voter knows best. The humans know best. If we want to know who should rule the country, we should just ask the people. The voter knows best is one of the key ideas of humanism and humanist politics. We find roughly the same idea in economics. If in politics the slogan is the voter knows best, in economics the slogan is the customer is always right. How do we know if a product is good? We ask the customers. What determines whether the corporation is successful or not? It's also a kind of elections, but not elections like in democratic elections at the polling station. It's elections with our credit card, with our money. We vote for the corporation we like with our credit card. A corporation is successful if it follows, if it answers the desires, the feelings of the customers. A corporation that ignores the feelings, the wishes, the choices of the customers will not succeed, will not be able to survive. This is humanist economics. Similarly, in the field of art and aesthetics, for thousands of years, people believed that art is coming from inspiration of some supernatural power, and that there are objective yardsticks to determine what is good art and what is bad art, what is beautiful and what is ugly. Humanist aesthetics humanist art is very different. Just as in politics, the slogan is, the voter knows best. In economics, the slogan is, the customer is always right. So in humanist art, the slogan is, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. What is art? Anything that humans think is art, that's art. What is beauty? Anything that humans think is beautiful and willing to pay for, this is beauty. That's all. In a very famous gesture, 100 years ago in 1917, a French artist, Marcel Duchamp, took an ordinary urinal, said, this is a work of art, signed his signature, Marcel Duchamp, and placed it in a museum, and called it art. And ever since then, people argue, is it art? It's not art? And at least if you're a humanist, you would say, well, anything that people think is art, that's art. And anything that people think it's beautiful, it's beautiful. And if you think it's beautiful, then what authority is there in the world that can tell you, no, this is not beautiful, this is not art? So this is humanist aesthetics. Beauty is not with God. Beauty does not come from heaven. Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. Similarly, humanist ethics. What is good and what is bad? How should we behave? So for thousands of years, people said, well, we should listen to God, or to the gods, or to heaven. And how do we know what the gods or what God wants from us? It's written in Holy Scriptures. So you should read, say, the Bible or the Quran and do whatever the Bible tells you to do. Humanist ethics, which characterize the modern world, thinks very differently. No, good is anything that humans feel that it is good. The slogan of humanist ethics is, if it feels good, do it. If something makes you feel good and doesn't make anybody else feel bad, then just go ahead and do it. This is, for example, the logic, the reason why homosexuality is now more and more accepted in many parts of the world. Back, say, in medieval Europe, homosexuality was considered a terrible sin. Why? Because God said so. Because the Bible said so. The Bible said, no, it's bad, so you shouldn't do it. Now Europeans think very differently. They just tell people, well, listen to your feelings. If you feel good about it, if two men feel good about having sexual relations or getting married, then if they feel good about it and nobody is being harmed by it, then it's good. If it feels good, do it. Of course, sometimes there are conflicts. What if something that I do makes me feel good but makes you feel bad? For example, if I steal your car, I feel good about it, but you feel bad about it, so there is an argument. But all arguments in humanist ethics are made in the names of human feelings. You may be forced to do something you don't like because it harms somebody else, because somebody else is feeling bad about it, not because God said so or because the Bible said so. So this is humanist ethics. And finally, we have humanist education. For thousands of years, people thought that the source of authority and wisdom and meaning comes from God, from scriptures, from the wise, holy people of the past. So the main aim of education in many civilizations around the world was to teach students, to teach children to remember the orders of God, or the wisdom of the ancient people. You went to school to learn what's written in the Bible, or what Socrates said, or what Confucius said. Humanist education, which characterized the modern world, thinks very differently. It thinks, well, the source of authority and meaning in the world is not outside ourselves, it's not in the heavens, it's not in the Bible, it's within ourselves. It's our own feelings and choices that are the source of meaning and authority. Therefore, the main aim of humanist education is to teach people how to think for themselves. If you ask a teacher at kindergarten or school and university, what are you trying to teach the pupils? If he or she believe in humanism, they will tell you, well, I try to teach my pupils history or mathematics or chemistry, but above all, I try to teach them to think for themselves. This is the main goal of humanist education. This view of the world, placing humans and human feelings and human choices at the center, is now being challenged by the new technologies, which we discussed briefly in the previous class, by biotechnology and by computer science, artificial intelligence. We are now facing the end of the humanist worldview, which put humans and their feelings and their choices at the center of the world, at the center of politics and economics and art and so forth. Because what now science is telling us, that actually there is no such thing as free will. Humans never make any free choices. All the choices humans make are the result of biochemical processes in the body. There is no such thing as a soul, according to biologists, that make completely free choices. Everything that happens within the body and determines your choices, your political choices, your ethical preferences, your what to buy, it's all determined not by free will. There is no such thing, according to biologists. It is determined by biochemical processes within your body and within your brain. According to science, there are two kinds of processes in existence in reality, and neither of them is free. Some processes are deterministic. Something happened deterministically because something happened previously. And then you have some processes which are random or probabilistic. For instance, in quantum mechanics, there are many quantum events which happen not deterministically, but randomly. Like, why does a radioactive atom decompose? There is no absolute reason, there is no deterministic reason, it's random. So you have in the world randomness and you have determinism, but no freedom. Randomness, of course, is not freedom. It's something completely different. So now biologists are coming and saying, actually, there is no free will. Human choices also do not reflect free will. They reflect biochemical processes in the body. And human feelings, which are so central to humanist politics and ethics and aesthetics, human feelings too are just biochemical processes. All kinds of neurons firing in your brain because all kinds of chemicals were released to the blood and so forth. And what the scientists are now telling us is that, in fact, if you gather enough data and you make the right calculations, then an external entity can understand exactly how you feel, and it can predict your decisions, and it can even make better decisions for you than you can make for yourself. What does it mean that feelings are just biochemical processes in the body? What does it mean that sensations, your emotions, what you feel, what you sense, this is just biochemical events and calculations in the body? To understand this, let's take a simple example, very common in nature, a problem of survival. According to the theory of evolution, all organisms, including apes, including human beings, are really machines for survival based on calculations that determine the behavior of these machines, we call organisms, they are our sensations and emotions. It sounds very complicated. What does it mean in simple words, in practice? Well, let's say that you have a baboon somewhere in the African savannah, and the baboon sees a tree with bananas hanging on it. And the baboon wants these bananas, but he also sees that there is a lion not far from the bananas. Should the baboon risk his life for these bananas or not? This is a problem, actually, of calculating probabilities. What is the probability that I, the baboon, will die from hunger if I don't eat these bananas, versus the probability that I, the baboon, will die if I try to get these bananas and a lion will come and eat me. You have to balance, you have to calculate these probabilities. In order to calculate these probabilities correctly, you need a lot of data. Data about the bananas. How far are they? How many bananas? Are they ripe bananas or green bananas? You need data about the lion. How far is the lion? Is the lion big or small? Is the lion asleep or awake? Does the lion look hungry? You need data about yourself. How fast can I run? How hungry am I? You need to take all these pieces of data together and calculate the probabilities to see what to do. How does the baboon calculate the probabilities? The baboon does not take out a pocket calculator and start calculating probabilities. No. The entire body and brain and nervous system of the baboon is the calculator. What we call sensations and emotions are actually the mechanisms for calculating probabilities. In a split second, there will be a flood of sensations that the baboon feels. This is actually the process of calculation. And the result of this process of calculation will also appear not as a number, but as a feeling, the feeling of bravery or fear. If the baboon feels fear, it means that the body calculated the probabilities that no, it's too risky to take these bananas. So the baboon will feel fear. This is the origin and purpose of the feeling of fear. And similarly, if the calculations reach the result that no, I should actually risk my life for the banana, it makes sense, then this too will not appear as a number, it will appear as a feeling, as an emotion. The baboon will feel courageous and rise and run to the bananas. So feelings and emotions, like fear, they are not some spiritual phenomenon that we have in order to write poetry. There are a biochemical process of calculation that natural selection gave us to calculate the probabilities and make decisions, practical decisions in the world. Now, until today, even though this was true for millions of years, it wasn't very relevant, this idea, because all outside institutions, like kings and priests and churches and kingdoms, they didn't understand what was happening inside the human body. And they didn't have the power of calculation to decipher the mechanisms inside our body. The Christian church, for example, could not really understand the hormonal mechanisms or what is happening in your brain. So even though it was true, even thousands of years ago, that in theory, somebody could understand you better than you understand yourself, in practice, this wasn't true. Because nobody had the understanding of biology, and nobody had the power of calculation, of computing that we today have. So 1,000 years ago, the Christian church or the Chinese emperor could not understand what's happening in your brain, could not understand what you're feeling, and therefore it was still good advice to follow your feelings and not to follow what's in the Bible or what the Pope or the Chinese emperor is telling you to do. Because the Bible, in the end, was just the wisdom of a few humans in ancient Jerusalem that wrote it. Your feelings, in contrast, were the outcome of millions of years of evolution. They were the accumulated wisdom of millions of years of evolution. So in the 19th or 20th century, when humanism told people, oh, don't listen to the Pope, don't listen to the Bible, listen to your feelings, this actually made good sense. Your feelings were a much better source of authority than the commands of the Pope. Sorry. This, however, is changing now, because we are now seeing the confluence of two immense scientific waves. On the one hand, we have the wave coming from biology. Biologists are deciphering the human body. Biologists are understanding how the body works, how the brain works. And you can summarize 150 years of biological research since Charles Darwin in just 3 simple words. Organisms are algorithms. Organisms are simply machines for calculating probabilities based on biochemical processes. Organisms are biochemical algorithms. This is the conclusion that biology is reaching. At the same time, computer scientists are learning to create better and better algorithms in computers. They are learning to create electronic algorithms. And now these two waves are merging, are meeting. The insights of biology are meeting the insights of computer science, which is why also more and more computer corporations like Google and Facebook and Apple and Microsoft and so forth, they are also becoming biotech companies. They are also entering the area of biotechnology. And what we see from the confluence of these two waves is the emergence of institutions, of artificial intelligence, of technology that can, for the first time in history, understand you better than you understand yourself. And this is already causing a shift in authority from human beings, from human feelings, from human choices to computer algorithms. We are now constructing computer systems, big data systems, that collect information about human beings, about the human body, about the human brain, analyze it, and are able to understand what is happening to you and how you feel better than you can understand yourself, and therefore make choices for you which are potentially better than the choices that you can make for yourself. I'll give a few examples. For instance, in the field of medicine, it's very likely that the most important decision about your body, about your health, during your lifetime will be taken not on the basis of your feelings and free choices, but on the basis of computer algorithms. To give a real example, 2 or 3 years ago, this movie actress, maybe you know it, Angelina Jolie, one of the most famous actresses, one of the most famous women in the world, she did a DNA test, a DNA scan, and she discovered that she's carrying a genetic mutation which, according to the calculations of some computer, means she has an 87% probability of getting breast cancer. She immediately went and checked herself and discovered she didn't have breast cancer at the time. But the computer still said, yes, you don't have breast cancer now, but according to our databases, according to our calculations, our algorithms, women who have this rare genetic mutation have an 87% probability of getting breast cancer. Angelina Jolie did not feel bad at all at the time. She did not feel sick. Her feelings were telling her, you're okay. You don't need to do anything. But the computer was saying something else. There is a time bomb ticking in your DNA. Do something about it. You don't feel bad, but I'm telling you, based on my database, that you're in great danger. And Angelina Jolie chose to listen to the computer, not to her feelings. And she had a double mastectomy, cutting off both her breasts. A very difficult procedure with lots of repercussion, which she did on the advice of this computer, this database. And most of the medical decisions in your life will probably be taken in the same way. Not based on what you feel, on what you think, but based on what the computer is telling you on the basis of this huge databases, huge biometric databases. So we see a development in history that in previous centuries, hundreds and thousands of years ago, the main worldview was theistic, from theos, God. God was the source of authority, and people were told, listen to God, listen to the Bible. If you have a problem, ask the Bible. Sorry. Then came humanism and says, no, actually, there is no God. Humans are the source of authority. If you have a question, if you have a problem, then listen to your feelings. They will tell you what to do. Now we are entering a new age, an age you can say of dataism, when people are told, no, don't listen to your feelings, listen to Google, listen to Microsoft, listen to Apple. They know you better than you know yourself. They know exactly how you feel. They can recommend to you better courses of action than you can think about yourself. To give a few more practical examples, it starts with small things, like what book to buy. You want to buy a book, an interesting book. So you go online. So I go, for example, on Amazon online. The first thing that happens when I enter the Amazon bookshop is a banner pops up and tells me, I know you. I've followed all your reading practices before. I know which books you liked and which you didn't like. And I know people like you, what kind of books they tend to like. And based on all this data, I recommend to you to buy this book. And very often, it's amazing, it really works. Amazon recommends books. Previously, I go to the shop, I follow my feelings. These books look interesting, this book looks interesting, and very often I make a mistake. Now with Amazon, more and more I rely on what Amazon is telling me what book to read. And this is just the first step. Now Amazon is gathering more and more data about you, about what's happening inside your body. If you have a reading device, if you don't read books in paper, but you read electronic books, for instance, on Kindle, then Kindle is reading you while you are reading the book. Already today, Kindle knows if, for example, you stop reading a book. Kindle knows it, on which page you stopped reading the book. Kindle knows which pages you read quickly and which pages you read very slowly. Kindle knows whenever you stopped or resumed reading the book. And this again, it's still very, very initial step. If you connect Kindle to programs that recognize facial expressions, and then if you can connect Kindle to biometric devices like armbands and like sensors that measure what is happening inside your body, Kindle starts to know much more about you. Kindle knows when you laughed. Kindle knows when you cried. Kindle knows when you were bored or angry. Kindle even knows every word you read in the book. Kindle knows what it does to your blood pressure, to your heart rate, and to all the other biometric data of your body. And if Kindle knows it, Amazon knows it. And Amazon can use this immense data to actually know you better than you know yourself. And this data, of course, can be extremely relevant, not just to sell you books, but to do far, far more. For example, to recommend to you not just books, but dates and marriages, whom to marry. Previously in history, when people ask themselves, who should I marry? They ask the figures of authority, like parents or priests or elders of the community. Then came humanism and told humans, oh, don't listen to these figures of authority, listen to your feelings. You should marry the person you feel that you want to marry. Now we are entering the era of dataism. And now we say, no, Well, we will say no. Don't listen to your feelings. Listen to Google. Listen to Facebook. Listen to Amazon. They know you better than you know yourself. If I have to choose between several potential partners for marriage, then I will ask Amazon or Google, well, Amazon, who should I marry? And Amazon will tell me, well, I know you from the day where you were born. I followed you while you read every book you ever read in life. I listened to every phone call you ever made. I read every one of your emails. I follow you around with biometric devices every minute of every day. Even when you go on dates with different people, I know what it does to your blood pressure or to your heart rate. And based on all this immense knowledge about you, I recommend that you marry A and not B. But wait, I know you so well that I even know you don't like what I just told you. You actually wanted me to say to marry B and not A, because B is more good looking, is more handsome. And I don't ignore good looks. I took the good looks of B, the beauty of B into account. I didn't disregard it completely, but I still recommend you to marry A and not B. You value, I know you. I understand your biochemical system. I understand your brain. And I know that you prefer good-looking people because of your biochemical system, which evolved in the African savanna 70,000 years ago, when good looks were really a good sign for a potential mate, for a potential good and healthy and strong male. But I know that today, based on my amazing databases and understanding of millions and millions of relationships that I've been following, I know that good looks are far less important than what your biochemical system says. So I'm telling you, don't marry B, marry A. And if this succeeds, it's in the end just an empirical question, whether Amazon or Google or Facebook will make good decisions for us. And the more data they have and the better decisions they make, we rely on them more and more. And then they have even more data about us, and they make even better decisions for us, and we again rely on them more and more. So what we are seeing is a shift in authority from humans to databases, to data processing algorithms that understand us better than we understand ourselves. And we are seeing this shift already in the day-to-day behavior of human beings. Even your own behavior, you can test yourself whether you are this kind of dataist by your behavior. For example, you go to the zoo and you see panda bear, or you come to this lecture and you see me. What do? If you're a humanist, then you try to connect to your own feelings. What is this panda bear, or what is this lecturer, what does it do to me? What do I feel about this panda bear, or what do I feel about this lecture? This is the reaction of a humanist. What is the reaction of a dataist? A dataist takes out the mobile phone and takes pictures and puts it online, on WeChat or Facebook or somewhere. Doesn't try to connect to his or her own feelings because they are not the source of authority. Tries to gather data and share it, to share it with the data processing system which we are building and which is more and more the source of all the authority and meaning in the world. So this is the new direction that we are seeing in the 21st century, that more and more we expect the answers to all the big and difficult questions of life, both individually and collectively, to come not from human feelings, but from external data processing systems, from extremely sophisticated algorithms that gather data on us and analyze us. Of course, this raises a big question, whether life is completely reducible just to data. Is everything that happens in the world just data and the processing of data. Dataists think that yes, this is everything. All the universe is just a flow of data. All the phenomena in the universe, whether human beings or animals or plants or institutions, they are just different mechanisms for analyzing and processing data. Whether it is true or not, it's a different question. Perhaps the biggest gap, the biggest hole still in our understanding of life is the problem of consciousness. We still don't have a good explanation of consciousness, of the human mind, in terms of data and data processing. We don't still understand how is it that millions of neurons firing electrical signals at one another, how does this create the subjective experience of love or hate or anger or boredom? We don't know that. So maybe not all life is reducible to data. Maybe this data religion that expects data to provide us with all the answer, maybe it isn't true. However, what we learned from history is that a religion, an ideology, does not need to be true in order to conquer the world. Previous religions that conquered the world were not necessarily true. So this data religion too, even though it may not be true, it may not describe reality correctly, still, it may take over the world in the coming century. Thank you very much.